Welcome back. This is Focus Diaspora, where we're talking about issues facing Kenya and the concerns of Kenyans in the diaspora. As I said, in this segment, we want to talk about, among other things, issues of, there has been an increase in the amount of money that Kenyans in the diaspora actually remit back to Kenya. There was a report on the Mwakilishi just yesterday, July 20th, that said that Kenyans sent home $30.2 million in February 2006, and that amount rose to 103 million shillings in February of 2012. That's about 300% increase, and that's according to the Kenyan Central Bank. Last year, this is estimated to beat last year's total remittance, which was $891 million. So the Kenyans sending money back home is ever increasing. And this money is sent for different reasons, for taking care of nephews, cousins, sons, daughters to school, taking care of family when they're sick, taking care of their business, building homes, starting a business. And so that alone is making it very, very important for the Kenyans abroad to participate in whatever happens. They have a stake in it. And when we talk about health, a lot of times here we think about the health care that we have here, the facilities that we have here. And yet, on many occasions, we've seen ministers, even the Prime Minister, going abroad to seek health care, to seek treatment. The question is, what has the common mwananchi got to do in such a situation? And here with us today in the studio, again, the three ladies, Mkawasi and Jeanette and Regina. Now, in the audience, an audience member has also come. And what's your name again, young lady?
My name's Angelina.
Angelina, that's a beautiful name. You had a question about health, or you have a concern to do with health. What is it?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to actually make a comment. It's just really interesting that I happen to be here today and you're talking about health. The reason why I'm in Washington, D.C. area is I've come for the International AIDS Conference. I don't know if any of you know anything about it.
Yes.
And in terms of what Mwananchi can do, one of the things for me, as a Kenyan living in the diaspora, actually, I'm based in the UK.
Oh, thank you. You're all the way here. The more, the better.
Yes, but what I'm trying to do is to kind of raise awareness of some of the issues that affect my fellow Kenyans back home. I'm actually at the conference, and I'm going to be speaking about the sexual rights and reproductive health of women living with HIV. And we're looking at around women being able to make choices, to be able to be healthy, to be able to look after their families. But you can't actually do that if you don't have the necessary information and the education to actually make the choices. So it's around a little bit of what I can do is to raise awareness in order to enable whoever gives the grants, whoever provides the support, to be able to provide that to the people back home. So I think about a couple of weeks ago, there was an announcement by Melinda Gates who said she was going to provide contraceptives to people within the African continent. And there was a debate going on about should they really be providing that service.
Right.
So what I feel personally is the fact that, yes, they need to provide that service. However, we need to have the right infrastructure in place. Women need to have the information about what are these contraceptives, what are they getting, and then they can make the right choice. But I think that's a little part that I can play in terms of coming to raise awareness of the health issues for some of my people in back
Now,
home.
do you think that right now there is a concerted effort, or actually a policy in place from the government to do that, to raise awareness, to educate people about that concern?
Well, I would hope that there is. And I know a lot of our governments depend on donor aid in terms of putting programs together. But I think what we need to also be able to do is to not always let donor countries dictate how we put health services into place, because they need to be able to match what our people need. So it's not enough to say, oh, thank you very much for the grant, we'll do exactly what you want. Whatever services need to be provided have to suit people. Look at where people have to come from to access the services. What information do they need? What do they need to do in order to be able to do things properly and to uptake those services?
Thank you very much. That was wonderful. Now, this morning, actually, throughout the morning, I was volunteering for the AIDS conference that's going on. A number of journalists were brought from all over the world to be trained by the Voice of America on how to report on AIDS and HIV, because there's a lot of sensitivity in how reporters report. One South African guy talked about a lady that went to be tested, and she tested positive, and when she went back for a second testing, she actually tested negative because of the test went wrong. But the way it was reported was not in a way to educate the common person, because then the common person says, hey, if somebody can be tested and they're positive, then later on they're negative, I don't want my name going out there as being positive for this entire time, because it becomes a stigma. People don't believe the second testing. So I was involved in that today. So somebody had a very strong, I think you said you had a very strong opinion about
remittances.
Remittances.
Yeah, but
we were talking about remittances.
Right, but let me just answer your question first about the testing.
Yeah.
I think there need to be more education about, let people know that the testing regime is not foolproof. Every testing regime of any kind of illness might not be foolproof. As long as you educate the masses and let them know it could come out positive and later come out negative or vice versa, then I think there will be more understanding of
and that was
such
the question
outcomes.
of educating people and saying nothing is foolproof.
Right, it has to boil down to educating the masses. Okay. Now, on the issue of remittances, I feel this very strongly. As far as I know, every time a government representative or a minister comes to the U.S., in their first statement, the first sentence, but obviously in their first paragraph, they will always tell us, open with a line like, diaspora Kenyans, you're very important to Kenyan because your remittances were this amount of money this year or that year.
Right.
I hate the fact that we are being defined by how much money we contribute. That's not the only contribution we make to our economy. We make to Kenya. Mm-hmm. And as an example, even to your family members, if they are always appreciating you for the dollars or the shillings that you send to them, that to me suggests a gold digger.
The only time they call you is when
they need money. And I'm so tired of this. I am one of the diaspora Kenyans that contribute financially to my family, but I want them to appreciate me for other things. The same with the country. I think they need to appreciate us also for the ideas we bring in and for our political participation and for participation in other areas and aspects of Kenyan life. Mm-hmm. For instance, I am aware, I don't know if the government is aware of this, there's so many Kenyans in the diaspora that contribute to the interest of Kenya in other ways. There are many nurses in the US that arrange visits with doctors and healthcare professionals to go into rural Kenya and offer medical services and other areas, investments. So
are you suggesting that maybe the government should be involved or deliberately be seeking out this kind of services that are provided other than just the remittance?
I agree. We obviously participate or contribute immensely in terms of remittances. That's undeniable. The records show. Yeah. But I think they need to start appreciating us for, in addition to that, much more. And not just view us in terms of the money that we contribute. That's not how we want to be known by.
Okay.
I totally agree with Regina on that. And being that it sends the wrong message to, Kenyans, as in, okay, they're going to keep sending and we're going to look good. This remittance issue has been the first topic that every leader that comes out here talks about.
Right.
They take our ideas and, we had a Diaspora conference not too long ago, last year,
Yes.
towards the end of the year,
Yeah.
and we never get any feedback. They take all these ideas and they run with it back home.
My understanding is that conference was very successful.
Very successful, but what?
Standing room only.
Right,
Yeah.
and so this comes, with the frustrations of the people in the diaspora, as in we have all these skills. We came out here to have a good education, to go back and build our country, but we feel stuck, in the sense that, even if we go back, we can't get the jobs or the accurate pay for our skills. There's no job creation. There's no maintenance to keep jobs. So it's high time. I'm a strong believer right now of swaying away from the government, and let's just do this, us and the Wananchi. If our leaders cannot do this.
And that's a great idea. But we also have to realize that a lot of the Kenyan diaspora, with all the skills, you're in IT, you work for the Northrop
Grumman,
right?
Yes.
Which is a major industry in the defense, in airplane making.
Right.
But how do you? And when you think about it, that is a very high capital intensive type of business. How do you transfer? And again, you're saying that we need to get away from the government and do that. How do you start transferring such skills, so to speak, to Kenya?
Right now, I'm really thinking of just going privatizing, starting an organization, people like us, forming groups and just coming in, raising funds, taking that and putting out plans and then planting them in the grassroots. Nairobi is overdeveloped. Let's take it down to the grassroots and pull people away from Nairobi, and that's the starter off of how to build this. We also have people like Chinese who are coming to build roads. You don't see a Kenyan building the road. It's all Chinese, and that shouldn't be. We need Kenyans to be working to get the skills. So next time we don't call the Chinese if we need to maintain the roads.
I know. I think Jeanette is right on the mark. There's a really big area where the private Kenyan can come in and be part of the development, and also talking about picking up from Regina's point of view. It's like in a family when the children are growing up, they don't have much of a say because the parents are educating them.
Right.
Then there comes a time when they get a job and start earning money. And then the parents suddenly realize, whoa, my child is earning a pretty big salary. Now, at that time, you invite the children to become part of the decision-making process. And that usually happens. You don't even have to have a formal thing. Immediately you start earning money, you have economic power. And it's not just economic power that you have to change things to make the homestead better. You also have a welcome table at the welcome place at the decision-making table. And that is what we're asking for, representation in making decisions. But before I finish, what she mentioned is so important, yet there is a place where the government comes in, and that is the area of policy. Because a lot of times we can do a lot of things as private citizens.
Right.
And lack of political will can stop us.
So, and there need to be some enabling
That is right. That is right.
thing going on. Now, you just mentioned about, you talked about the importance of policy and political will. Is there anybody here who thinks that there's a political will within our politicians, to do anything that goes towards that?
I always just want to go back and ask, our MPs, and I'm willing to do this when I go to visit this August. What do you do if a local person asks you, what did you do for us today? As a community, what have you done? What would their answer be? Nothing.
Because here you go to work from morning till for 8 hours. At the end of the day, you can say, I did this. Would a politician in Kenya, an MP in Kenya, give you what they've done for the day to affect somebody, impact the life of their constituency? What is your take on that?
I do not think there is any political will from our politicians. I can give an example. They passed a law that if you are from the diaspora, in order to run for public office, you have to wait 10 years. That's self-serving. That's in bad faith. I think they're suspicious towards Kenyans from the diaspora. They want our money. That's why they talk about remittances all the time.
Okay.
But beyond that, that's all they count us for. And therefore, they go to parliament, and I don't know how these laws got slipped in at midnight that we didn't notice, and we need to fight to get them amended.
Yeah.
But if I'm Kenyan, like you are Kenyan, and we Kenyans in the diaspora are Kenyans like they are,
right,
there should be no requirement to have me wait 10 years to run for public office.
And especially because most Kenyans, I'm of the opinion that most Kenyans that left Kenya did not leave Kenya because of a political concern. It was mostly for economic and advancement, either school, educational advancement. So in actual sense, the Kenyan government, there should be a policy that recognizes that it was an investment, it was an investment, and therefore this is the time to bring back the investment and not delay the investment for 10 years.
And I'll tell you the truth. We've told them this a million times. When they come to Washington, D.C. at the embassy, we tell them, we didn't leave Kenya out of our own choice.
Yeah.
We left because we were forced by circumstances, economics.
Right.
In the 90s, the economy was really bad. So we could all fit in Kenya. And in fact, I remember when President Kibaki took power, he actually encouraged people to leave the country and seek jobs elsewhere to benefit the country. And that's exactly what we did. Yeah. And we have done so. We have benefited the country. So this excuse of having us wait 10 years is in bad faith, and it needs to be amended.
This is what I'd like to say. Policy is something you have to fight for. You really have to have your smarts on and learn how to lobby. This country teaches us how to lobby. It teaches you to know your strengths and to put your foot out there. In Kenya, you have this thing where you're taught you have to raise your hand up before you speak,
right,
or you don't speak to people because that is a show of modesty. That's how you have to be. No, not in this country. You have to learn to speak out, to take the microphone when you need to. And this is what we've done as a diaspora. Over the years, we have fought for a policy up to the time where the government has now actually put together a diaspora policy. And this policy was being discussed a few months ago. We have put together our opinions. They are out there, and we hope that they're going to look at those opinions, which are very good, so that we have a real diaspora policy.
And speaking about that, there's been an issue about a representative from the diaspora in parliament,
right,
as a voice, a single point of voice.
Right.
We also know that there's offices that have been set up for the office of the diaspora in the embassies. Have you worked with this embassy, offices of the diaspora, and how effective is it? I mean, how are they helping push the issue?
Well, I have to say from experience that they're also grappling in the darkness.
Okay.
They're also trying to figure out exactly how to go about this. For example, here in the Washington Embassy, they put for the first time, they put a diaspora desk there. And from observation, they couldn't quite figure out how to run that, what to do with it, because they have to come to the diaspora, people who've been there, to try and figure out what's going on here. How do we engage with you guys? And we also have to have good faith in order to communicate with the embassy.
Right.
We can't approach them as enemies. And what has happened to date is different proposals on how we can have this engagement between the diaspora and the embassy, and the diaspora and the government. Now, having a representative in parliament is just one of the options. Another option
But how
is
practical is that?
Oh, it's very practical.
Because when you think about the diaspora,
Right.
it's everywhere, not just the U.S.
Right.
It's Australia, it's
That's right.
Europe. It's
Do you know?
Other,
do you
African
know?
countries.
In 2011, that is last year, I was the Americas representative in the Ambassadors and High Commissioners Conference in Mombasa, and there were 4 other representatives from 4 different places in Europe, in the Middle East, in Africa, and from Asia. And I'm saying this: they recognize those as diaspora constituencies. If the government could actually recognize those as diaspora constituencies and send representatives there is nothing impossible or out of the box about having a diaspora representative in parliament. This is not to warm up a seat or to get a salary. This is so that you can actually implement policies that are going to be able to have the kind of things she's talking about, the kind of private setups and initiatives to take effect in Kenya.
What really beats me also, Patrick, is, these MPs travel. They've traveled the world. They've seen how the government operates, and we're just saying, cut the corruption, even if you're taking 90%, give 10% to your community.
But they'll tell you that I was talking to an MP the other day, and we touched on issues about corruption, and they said, oh, well, the West is just as corrupt. So
there's corrupt, but at least they do for their people.
Right.
And I feel it's high time these MPs were sent back to their, regions, and work with the locals there, and make sure that you are putting whatever these people have asked for in place, But initially, I'm just thinking, overall, they should know that development brings more revenue. It brings a lot of wealth in a country. So
let's do it.
Yes, as far as diaspora representation in parliament is concerned, I'm all for it. The reasons being, for instance, if you look at the diaspora and Kenyans in the US, we have so many groups organizing themselves and through no faults of their own.
Yeah.
If we were given representation, maybe we would not be as fragmented as we are. There are so many groups purporting to represent diaspora interests, and many individuals.
Some flying by the suitcases.
Right, and I've had government officials
Right.
and ministers complaining that diaspora Kenyans go to Kenya and they demand to see ministers and they claim to represent this group or that group or themselves. The only way to solve that problem is have at least a structured representation in parliament.
But that is my question. And when I kidded about some in suitcases, I'm actually serious about it, because how do you, among all these many organizations, has there been effort to decentralize them, and therefore make it the power of combined one, as I think about it, you have more power, because we have so many. And then, how do you even, in this fragmented environment, how do you even start coming up with a representative? Because obviously, I don't think you're going to be given 10 whatever slots for representative. How do you begin that?
I think for the case, let's speak for the U.S. to begin with.
Yeah.
There are 51 states in the U.S.
Right.
And we can't meet physically with Kenyans in all states and have one meeting and decide. So the fragmentation is not necessarily through the failings of the Kenyan diasporas in the US. It's just because of the dynamics that we are not able to meet. So, but at the same time, if there was a policy or a law passed that we have to have one diaspora representative in parliament for the North American region, trust me, we will find a way to organize ourselves and elect that one, because we are required by law. But right now, we are not required by law, so we do our own thing, and that's why we are as fragmented. As far as the question in regard to other constituencies, because we agree, diaspora is not only diaspora in the US, diaspora Kenyans, it could be in other countries. I think what the Kenya government needs to do is to have diaspora representatives for each country, like if it's Nigeria, or Senegal or Tanzania,
So
and then have one.
a delegate type of process.
Right, but also have the numbers. How
Right.
many Kenyans are in Nigeria? How many people are you representing?
Okay.
In terms of that.
And with that, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue this discussion. This is your host, Patrick Dyer, this Focus Diaspora, and we're sitting in a beautiful Swahili village where Kenyans meet. We'll be right back.